Hi everyone, welcome to our Wellington webinar. Today on the topic of project assurance, where to start. My name is Marisa Silva, I'm going to be your host for the day. I also have my colleague Nicole with me in the background to support with any questions that you may have. Today we are going to cover where to start in project assurance if you are on that journey in your organizations. So you may have started assurance already, but being challenged on that approach, or this may be entirely new to the organization and you want to ensure that the organization is ready to take that change. So today I'm going to talk to you about some practical tips that you can use to make that experience effective and so that assurance can be embedded properly. So with that note, let's then make a start. So my first point is about starting with engagement. Most people actually start thinking about what is the tool that I should use, what are the measures that I should apply, what type of reviews are we going to include, health checks, stage gate reviews, etc. Actually, you need to remember that people are at the heart of change. They are the ones that are delivering projects, they are the ones that are going to be impacted by assurance, that are going to be subject to assurance. So we need to ensure that they are aware of why assurance is needed and then how it will impact on their day-to-day. So that's what I propose, that you start with people, start with engagement. So being very clear on your why. And you can, of course, start with best practice. Assurance would be about providing confidence to our stakeholders that the objectives are being delivered or are being attained, or on time, on cost, on quality for a certain project or portfolio of projects. Yet, sometimes that's not enough. So what I do recommend is that you use practical examples. Use your own tacit or explicit even knowledge. Projects that may be facing some issues or projects in the past in your organization where they have failed or have been challenged in their objectives. You may need to sanitize the information a little bit so that people don't be emotionally attached to it, but they will make great case studies. Look at this project that we had in the past. We have a variance of, I don't know how many thousands of pounds, or we had issues with the supplier. This is how assurance could have helped. So being very clear on why is it that you are introducing assurance. If it's just as a result of an external audit, that may not be sufficient. Okay? What we want to ensure is that we have an internal reason, an internal justification for assurance to exist. And that support should ideally come from the top. Then co-creating the assurance framework. Whatever you are going to propose from scratch, custom solution, or based on industry best practice, don't do it on your own. You should use the validation from others. Think of assurance as a service and those stakeholders as your customers. We'll want to engage them from the very offset so that they know what is going to be used. So what measures you are going to apply, what would make sense for a certain type of project. Don't just do that hard selling of coming up with this good idea that you read on a book and then try to implement. No one destroys what one helps to build. So involve them from the beginning. If you do have, say, a project management forum, a community or practice, those would be great forums, great opportunities for you to engage, to build that sense of belonging, of ownership. Then thinking that it's not just about you, but your customers. As I was just saying, if we do position assurance as a service, it's better to ensure that people understand why assurance is of relevance to them. We may be completing a stage gate review, not just for the sake of pausing the project. Of course, if those resources would be better used elsewhere, it should be put on hold. But the purpose of completing a review with the project management team before the stage gate is due is indeed to ensure that the project has the right conditions not to be stopped. Pretty much work with us, dear project managers, because this is the way that you know that you are not going to be put on hold on the stage gate. Because we have done that homework with you and you now have higher chances of succeed. Or if you look into the example of health check, deep dive, whatever you want to call it, throughout the life of the project, this could also be an opportunity to show why the project may require more resources, or why the project may require more support from the sponsor. So things that sometimes people are a bit afraid to say, or they have been crying for resources, but nothing happens. So this would be an opportunity to explain why this would be useful for those customers. In the same way, if you are thinking about the senior management team, they may be interested in having confirmation that the projects that are initiated are the ones that deliver highest return on investment, are the ones that are indeed achievable, feasible. So by having assurance involved, this would be an opportunity to do provide such confidence. Then also making assurance everyone's responsibility. We tend to think of assurance activities as the more structured or independent type of reviews, completing an audit or completing a stage gate review, a health check, but also self-assessments and peer reviews are types of assurance. This should be encouraged in the same way. It's not just the responsibility of the PMO or of the assurance team, but something that the project managers, the project team members can be completing themselves. Self-assessments can be done through checklists, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are checklists at the back of the Prince2 manual, on the APM guide, whatever is the method that you are using as your starting point. There can also be examples of what good looks like. So what is an example of a good business case or a good project plan? And also peer reviews. So going back to this idea of a community of practice, this could be an opportunity for project managers to ask for others to validate the approach, to play the devil's advocate, and confirming that, yes, we have considered all the options, or I had this issue that happened in my project in the past. Have you thought about this one yourself? Is this something that you are considering on your risk register? So thinking that it's not just about being fully independent, there are also some review types that are less independent, but would still be of much benefit in embedding assurance as day-to-day activities. Something else that you can do as part of that engagement piece is about finding assurance champions. So someone in the business, in the different departments, that could be a sponsor for assurance in their business. Highlighting what are the benefits of having assurance involved. Also doing that work of being reviewers themselves, or escalating any concerns that those teams may have towards assurance. If they had previous traumas, previous experience with assurance that didn't ended up that well, then those champions could be a filter in identifying what is just a matter of perception or what is really a reason for improvement in your assurance framework. So reunite people that you think could be good experts for assurance in the organization or on a certain project, if that is the case. Once you have started this engagement piece, for which you can even complete then a roadshow to ensure that you are getting all the support that you need, the next part will be about identifying what are the tools that you are going to offer, what are the review types, what's the approach that you are going to take. So starting with a plan. I do recommend starting with something that is already available publicly. So that is the APM, the Association for Project Management, the chartered body for the project profession. The APM Assurance SIG, Specific Interest Group, have developed a toolkit called Measures for Assuring Projects. It contains 10 key criteria that represent what a good project will look like. It can also be applied to programs, by the way. So rather than starting from scratch, let's use what is available. 10 criteria clearly defined on what would be the lines of inquiry, what would be the evidence to look for, ranging from client and scope to how well are we doing planning and scheduling on this project, the supply chain, so this would include internal and external supply, or some more obvious criteria like the financials of the project. How is the project performing? Are we meeting the objectives or not against the baseline? Are there any variances to be corrected? And then governance. On the Measures for Assuring Projects toolkit, there are 2 criteria that I think are worth highlighting because they are focusing on aspects that do not just follow what are the latest trends, but also one that highlights what is often the key reason for projects to be challenged, and that is organizational capability and culture, that cultural aspect. Sometimes it's not just about how the project is being delivered, it's about having the right conditions in place to enable successful delivery. Sponsorship, the right mechanisms of reporting, escalation routes, the right skill sets involved, etc. So that is one of the criteria that is measured by this toolkit, number 4 there on your screen. And then social responsibility and sustainability, in line with what is the role of the project management team going beyond delivery. So focusing on the legacy of the project and what will be the impact of the project on the sustainability of the business, so the profit side, the sustainability of the planet, the ecological side, and also the sustainability of the people. So local communities, but also the different types of customers, internal and external customers. For the ones of you who have attended the session that we had yesterday, for instance, as part of our Wellington community, sustainable project management or responsible project management was one of the trends that we have discussed, and that is also captured by the toolkit. So definitely something different from what you may have seen elsewhere, or maybe using, or may have used in the past if you have attempted assurance before. My other suggestion is that you should have just enough assurance. So as you are building the maturity on your assurance practice, starting with health checks, using those 10 criteria, you may then want to introduce stage gates. You may then want to have benefits realization reviews, quality reviews or inspections, or say a full audit. It's important that we understand what is enough. If you have a small project, low complexity, low level of risk, having too much assurance can kill it, can kill the joy of working in that project at least. So it's important that we associate the different types of projects or levels of risks, the risk profile in essence, to what would be different assurance routes. So the t-shirt sizing is a common approach, so small, medium, and large. So if you do have a small project, it could be just subject to an annual health check. If you do have a highly complex project, a strategic one where it's mission critical, we cannot fail, then this would require more scrutiny, and therefore having not just health checks on a quarterly basis rather than annual, but also stage gate reviews or also a formal audit could be a better approach. So try to identify what is what we call MVB, your minimum viable bureaucracy, just enough for things not to fall into chaos, but for sufficient governance still to apply. And then also communicate. This is part of the engagement piece still, but it's something that once you have defined what is your plan, what is the framework that you are going to use, that should be reiterated. So this is about setting expectations, ensuring that people are aware, are educated about what those criteria meant. So how are we going to assess length and scope? How are we going to assign it a score of red or a score of amber, for instance? What would be the triggers to reach one score or another, one level or another, actually? So that is described actually in the framework itself, the measures for assuring projects toolkit from the APM. You may want to customize it a little bit, refine it to your own practice, to your own industry. But what matters most is that we operate with a no surprises approach. So people should know in advance what is going to be assured, what is the weight that each of those criteria have. Say, for instance, if there is a concern expressed by the sponsor around the financials of the project, probably you are going to assign more weight to that criteria. Or if that project does not involve any external suppliers, but just internal, maybe the supply chain criteria could have a lighter weight. As part of that no surprise approach, not just what are the scores that are going to be used or lines of inquiry, but also what is the evidence that you are going to consult. So this doesn't need to be page number X and section number Y, but it should be high level. What are the documents that are going to be consulted? What is expected for a pass score to be achieved on each of those criteria? If people only know who you are or what they are going to be assured on, when they are already subject to a project health check, for instance, that's already too late. You should be educating people on what assurance is so that when assurance is needed on the project, they can request it, they know what to expect from you. As part of that no surprise approach and setting expectations, something else that you should do is ensure that people are aware of when they are going to receive the results, when they are going to be able to feedback on any imprecisions. So the full process of doing the review. And finally, I would suggest starting with a pilot. So don't try to boil the ocean. There are many review types, many tools that you can utilize. Let's first of all trial it in a controlled environment. So select a project that is representative of the type of complexity that you have, trial it there, and then as part of it, let's refine it, let's gather feedback from the stakeholders that have been involved so that you can iterate on that approach. Maybe we needed to allow more time for feedback to be collated. Maybe we need to go deeper on the analysis of a certain criteria, whatever that is. Also, please document lessons learned and ensure that that knowledge is transferred to other teams that may also be involved in assurance. So setting up a community of practice for assurance would be something that we would then recommend following up from this pilot as part of the scaling up of the approach. So ensuring that what worked well, areas for improvement, any unexpected challenges are clear and available for consultation. And then fine-tuning the approach and scaling up to the organization. So this could be, first of all, a certain portfolio by a business unit, and then the corporate portfolio. So this will ensure that people are aware that you have tried that approach, that you have applied continuous improvement, and as part of that, please remember to also share the successes. And given that this would allow people to know why assurance is fundamental in the organization. Just to finalize, a practical example. This is actually a health check that I completed earlier this week, so it's part of a report, but just to show you what it looks like. It does not have any sensitive information. So just for you to see what it could look like using, in this case, not just the 10 criteria from the APM measures for assuring projects, it also has 3 others that for this project we agreed that would be important to measure. So that includes, for instance, stakeholder engagement or transition to business as usual. So it has not just the scores achieved, but also what is the weight of that criteria and how does that compare with the previous review completed last quarter. Then for each of the criteria, client and scope being one of them, you can explain what that criteria is about, what was the score achieved, and then your findings and recommendations. So what you can see there on the screen is not a definitive list, it's just an example, but to show you how you could build that report. Thank you very much, everyone. Please stay in touch. I do have my contact details available now on the screen. So it would be lovely to continue the conversation on assurance. I also remind you that we do have an assurance course, so that is the APM accredited assurance practitioner training course, where we do cover not just this topic, but also more around the dark arts of doing effective assurance on our projects, programs, and portfolios. Thank you very much all, and I wish you all a happy 2024 and a Merry Christmas. Thank you.